Nothing feels more fragile than the whisper of a child standing alone against the wind. On a night when the sky burned with storm clouds, an orphan girl stood at the edge of her village. Clutching her torn shawl, daring to face the fury no one else could. The people behind her mocked her silence, doubted her worth, called her powerless. Yet as the air thickened and the winds howled louder, something unseen stirred. The child's lips moved, and the storm seemed to listen. What no one knew then was that the smallest voice in the valley carried a strength older than kings. The storm began not with rain, but with whispers. Low, curling winds rolled through the valley like invisible serpents, rattling the bamboo walls of homes, shaking lantern flames until they flickered blue. The villagers cursed under their breath, bracing for yet another season of hunger and loss. For years, the storms had stolen their crops, broken their roofs, and crushed their faith. At the center of this trembling world stood a child. Her name was Elira. Barefoot, hair tangled like black threads against her pale face. She stood on the dirt road as if she belonged not to the earth but to the restless wind itself. The villagers never understood her. She had been left on the edge years ago, an orphan wrapped in cloth, carried by strangers who never returned. And though families took turns feeding her, she never truly belonged. Worthless, some would mutter. She speaks to no one but shadows. Yet they noticed how she often lingered alone in the fields, whispering to the wind as though it were kin. This night, as storm clouds gathered, Elira's shawl whipped like a flag. Her eyes were closed. She was listening. Deep within the howl of the wind, voices stirred. Gentle, trembling voices, like echoes of forgotten lullabies. They had always been there for her, since childhood, carrying her when loneliness grew sharp. The villagers thought her strange, but she knew the truth. The wind spoke, and she listened. Elira's earliest memory was not of human touch but of the rustling wind slipping through cracks in an abandoned hut. She remembered hunger gnawing at her ribs, the sting of rejection, the ache of watching children laugh in circles she was not invited into. But when she cried, when her tears wet the dusty floor, the wind rose and swirled around her face, cooling her sorrow like a tender hand. She grew with the storms. Every season, when roofs blew away and crops bent to breaking, she would run into the fields barefoot, as if daring the tempest to claim her. Yet, curiously, no harm ever touched her. Branches snapped around her but never struck. Lightning split the sky, but she walked safely beneath its blinding fire. The villagers called it luck. Elira knew otherwise. Small one, the winds had whispered once, brushing her ears like a mother's breath. You are never alone. Now, years later, as the storm's roar deepened into a scream, the people gathered in the village square. Fear choked their voices. The storm felt different, angrier, heavier, as though it bore purpose. We must flee to the caves, shouted the chief, an aging man whose pride often drowned his reason. The winds will swallow the fields again. Nothing can stop it. Elira stepped forward. Her fragile frame seemed absurd before the crowd. The winds will listen, she said softly. Laughter broke out. The orphan speaks nonsense again. Does she think she commands the sky? Their mockery stung, but she stood unmoved. The wind thickened around her, twisting her hair, tugging at her dress like loyal companions. Inside her chest, a certainty bloomed, an unshakable truth that she was meant to stand, not flee. The chief scowled. Step aside, child. Do not waste our time with childish dreams. Yet in that moment, as he dismissed her, a sudden violent gust shattered a roof beam nearby, nearly crushing a group of children. The crowd gasped. Elira's hand rose instinctively, palm open to the sky, and the wind shifted, splitting around the children like an invisible shield, scattering debris away. Silence fell. For the first time, they saw it. The wind listened. Doubt cracked, but fear remained. If the storm was alive, could even the smallest orphan truly protect them? The villagers whispered, torn between mockery and desperate hope. Elira knew the truth the wind had told her, small ones hold power unseen. Purity commands what strength cannot. But her heart trembled. Could she bear the weight of an entire village? The storm advanced like an army, ripping trees by their roots, The air tasted of metal, thick and sharp. Darkness swallowed the moon. Mothers clutched infants. Men gripped farming tools like weapons that would never match the sky's wrath. Elira stepped to the village's edge. She closed her eyes, opened her palms, and let the voices of the wind fill her veins. They whispered, urgent and countless, warnings, cries, promises. Her body shook, yet she did not fall. Behind her, silence spread among the people. For once, the orphan was not mocked but watched. The smallest figure now bore their fragile hope. Then it happened. The storm struck with a roar so loud it seemed the heavens themselves were tearing apart. But the wind around Elira did not destroy, it danced. A wall of swirling air rose before the village, bending like glass to deflect the storm's rage. Crops bent but did not break. Roofs trembled but stood. The villagers gasped as debris turned mid-air, redirected like puppets pulled by unseen strings. Through her lips, the voices of the wind echoed, words no one else could understand. Yet they carried the force of ancient promises. Her fragile frame glowed with dignity, no longer small in spirit but towering in strength. Even the smallest voice, she whispered to herself, can command the storm. The people fell silent. They saw not a child but a guardian, not powerless but chosen. The chief who once mocked her fell to his knees. Forgive me, he muttered, trembling. But Elira did not seek apologies. She sought only to hold, to protect, to listen. For hours, the storm hurled its fury. Yet every wave of destruction was turned aside by the orphan and her unseen allies. Exhaustion clawed at her bones, but the wind carried her when she faltered. She swayed, nearly fainting. Yet the voices urged her on, stand, little one. We are with you. At last, the clouds broke. A pale dawn bled across the horizon. The wind softened into gentle breezes that kissed her cheeks in gratitude. The village stood, shaken, scarred, but whole. No lives lost. Fields spared. Elira collapsed to her knees, breath ragged. Behind her, hundreds of eyes stared not in mockery but awe. The same villagers who once doubted her now bowed their heads in silence, ashamed and humbled. One by one, they stepped forward. Mothers laid food before her. Men bent low. Children touched her hands, whispering thank you. She had no family, no place, yet in that moment she became the heart of them all. The orphan who spoke with wind spirits had proven that even the smallest could guard the many. She asked for no reward, no crown, no power, only that the people listen, as she had listened all her life. From that day, the villagers built not walls but wind towers, letting the breezes guide their planting, their travels, their lives. Elira grew into legend, but she never let pride root in her. She remained the same quiet child, walking barefoot in the fields, whispering to the voices that had always been her family. And so the valley carried a new truth, spoken in hushed reverence, do not mock the small. For even the smallest can move storms. And so, when the winds pass through valleys and over mountains, some say they still carry the laughter of a child once mocked, now remembered. She was never just an orphan. She was proof that power does not belong only to the strong or the mighty. It belongs also to the pure of heart. The wind carries voices of the pure.